Today we are visiting with Dave Cich, and he is with Vanguard, a company that was recently acquired by Durst, but it's been one of the best kept secrets around simply because of the COVID delay in getting recognition on new relationships. So Dave, thanks for coming in. We appreciate this and the time. I want to give us a little bit of a locale. We are in Holland, and we are at the FESPA show, which is your first chance to really come out and be able to talk about your product. So first of all, what I'd like to do is know who you are. How in the world did you get into printing?
So I got into printing about 30 years ago when I had to pay my way through college. And there was a company that I went to work for called Graphic Controls, which coated electrostatic paper, which was the first non-photographic way of producing wide format color.
Excellent. And then it grew from there. One of the things that I noticed when I was doing a little bit of research on the company is in the certain social media channels, there was a lot of feedback about your company in regard to the support that it provided. And that comes in a couple of different levels. I'm going to let you talk about that. But what I was impressed by was the detailed and overwhelming positive response that they said was clearly help that they really appreciated. What culture did you really create that inspires your support teams to provide that?
So my success comes from my team and my customers. My team takes care of our customers. What I challenge them with is to take a holistic view of everything. We always do right by the customer. A lot of people say that, but we do it. There's instances in which to support a customer, we've lost money overall. But I look at the performance of the whole company, and then I break it down to each person who joins the Vanguard family, and we make sure that their investment pays off for them.
Well, that's very interesting that you use the term family, because that's certainly what it sounds like when I read that. I get that impression. So I'm curious, in the relationship that you have with your clients, is that something that came up in your discussions with Durst and their interest in you in extending that culture into the U.S. market?
So it was interesting, once I got together with Durst to see how our philosophies are parallel to each other. Durst is a large company with a family feeling to it. So the synergy was very strong between the two of us. And it really came out because before they acquired us, they did an extensive survey of my install base, and we got overwhelmingly positive feedback.
Okay, so that just shows how genuine it was, because it's not only in social media, but it's also in their due diligence in looking at what your company is. What would you describe as, rather than a specific incident, what would you describe as one of the most important aspects of that support? And I'm going to just let you speak to it.
I can give you a great example. At previous companies I worked for, the sales rep would develop a relationship with the customer, and as soon as they got them to sign off on the quotation or the PO, they were incentivized to really not work with that customer anymore, but to move on to the next one. At Vanguard, the same person who you made the commitment to is also continue to manage the account from the install of the printer until you buy the next Vanguard. It's the same person, same contact, and by working with the same person all the time, you develop a relationship. They have a better understanding of your business than anyone in Atlanta or my other locations, and they make sure that we do right by you.
So since we already discussed that Durst took an interest in looking at that particular relationship, do you feel that one of the things that you can add to Durst's initiative to grow in the U.S. is in fact that culture?
Yeah, the culture differentiates us away from other companies that are much larger than I am. So with Durst in the U.S., Durst in Europe, it's pretty interesting that when we get together and compare, the markets are quite diverse, where we actually shared very few customers in common in the United States. And they were surprised by the amount of printers I was selling, and I was surprised by the performance of a Durst printer in some of the shops they had.
Okay, fantastic. So it looked like you each had mutual interests, even though they weren't the same exact interest, but it's very interesting. So the other part of this is, of course, Vanguard's opportunity to expand into the European market and other more of a global play in terms of what you're doing. Where do you see your opportunities in that regard and your challenges?
I'm discovering all of them. Every day I live, every day I live, I learn. That's part of my philosophy. So, just managing a business in the middle of COVID is so much more difficult right now. But in Europe, it's the same competitors we have in the United States. The reason why I sold a portion of my company to Durst is because I'm driven by competitive nature. Most important thing to me in life is family. Then number two is I like a challenge every day, and I love to compete. So with those things, I'm coming to Europe, and I want to bring a philosophy of taking care of a customer to my section of the marketplace in Europe and have the same success here that I had in the US. And success is measured differently. You gave me a nice compliment about the feedback my customers give. That's probably the most important thing to me in Europe, because if I build a good product, I make the customers happy, I'll get my success.
Excellent. That's a really good point. So in terms of your ability to build this new sales structure, we all know that that's one of the hardest things to do in business, is to do that and start to actually do acquisition. How dependent are you on the existing sales staff of Durst to do that? And I want to include human resources as your ability to actually get the right people in the job, and then your overseeing of the actual structure of that sales team.
So again, it's a work in progress. In 2021, it's been very difficult to acquire talent. I thought it was a syndrome in the United States, but it seems like it's worldwide, that people have a lot more choices. So we try to make Vanguard Durst a place where people want to work, number one. Number two is I try to acknowledge that my success comes from my employees whenever I get an opportunity. So doing those two things, we are recruiting. I'm going to have a hybrid sales model depending on which area in Europe. Sometimes we'll utilize the resources that Durst has already, but Vanguard will remain 100% independent of Durst. We will utilize some of the resources on service in the front office that we can from Durst, but the sales team, the sales decisions, and most of the service team, once I build it up, will be Vanguard only.
Excellent. And you brought up a very challenging point for the printing industry, is bringing in, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, bringing in the younger set of people into the industry. And how do you see that? Or do you have any programs that you either run or you support as a source for that kind of feed of qualified people?
So that's a great question. That's something I take a lot of pride in. I'll talk about it in two channels. Number one is my management team. I have a lot of very educated people with MBAs or masters in another area that I hire young or right out of school. And we have training programs in which we train them to understand the printing industry, to understand what our customers want, and to understand what our philosophy is so that we can have success. And it's worked out beautifully. So on the other half is technicians. We all struggle with technicians. What we have done is we've taken a different look at things. I understand that people are mechanical who like working on their cars, who like fixing their dryers or whatever. I will hire them young. We have, again, a great training program, and we teach them how to repair our printers, because if you're fixing your car, you can fix our printer. So therefore, I think the average age of my employees is somewhere around 28.
Oh wow, that's a very low demographic number. Fantastic, and so you enjoy relating to them. How does that relate to your family life? I mean, you have children?
I do. I have 3 children. My daughter Chloe is 26, and she's autistic, very high functioning autistic.
Right.
And then my son Benjamin's getting his MBA. He'll graduate this year. And my other son is graduating from the architecture school at Auburn this December.
My goodness.
So I've been married for 29 years. My wife is my exact opposite, very high energy extrovert, but that's what makes our relationship so great. But the most important thing to me is my immediate family. And then I look at Vanguard, and there's, again, different ways of measuring success. The amount of my employees that bought their first new car, or their house or their second house, I take a lot of pride because then I'm providing the leadership and stability for them to be able to advance in their lives.
Yeah, I think that that's probably the way a lot of business is starting to evolve is that they realize the senior management, the owners of the companies are the ones who are realizing that there's an obligation on their part to care. And certainly that story really underscores that interest. Where do you see the print industry evolving over the next 5 years? You've been in it for 30 years. I've been in it a while too. Both of us have seen massive changes, regardless of if our experience has crossed over. All of it has changed. Where do you see things going from this point on? Give me the long look.
So that's a great question. Since I've been in this industry, it seems like it changes every 3 years. So, the print heads used to get better, the technology changed, the inks got better, the speed of the units got better, the quality then would advance again. So it seems like it changes every 3 years or so. So it taught me to embrace change. So I look at the market now and I always see opportunity. So I think in packaging, I think in manufacturing, 20% of our printers have nothing to do with the sign industry. It's wood decor for a house. Technically, I guess that's a sign. There's a game in America called cornhole.
Yeah.
So we have 21 different cornhole manufacturers now, I think, with our printers. So I look at what the machine is capable of, and I try to find a market for it. We have one customer, all they do is print pencils all day long.
And they're still using pencils. I love it. Old tech. Old tech. That's fabulous. So, well, that's you've actually raised a couple of other questions for me that I really want to just get your read on it. It's one thing to have equipment that does different things. I'm always curious about what drives that innovation that's going on with the equipment. What do you see, or how do you see into the market for the people who are actually requesting these things, the designers, the ad agencies, the creatives of the world? Do you have a relationship with them? What do you learn from them?
So introspecting a little bit, I have a philosophy of I know very little and I can learn from everyone. So what I try to be is a good active listener, and all of my best ideas didn't come from within me. By schooling, I'm an actuary, so I'm not creative at all.
But you're factual.
Yeah, I'm very factual, and everything needs to fit in a column. But I guess I'm just a good listener. So when someone talks to me and shares with their experience or their thoughts, I can process it. So it's kind of hard for me to understand because I'm nothing special. I guess the two best talents I have is understanding people and hiring good people around me. And number two is I never go to, we'll talk about football or soccer real quick. I never go to where the ball is now, but I have an understanding where the ball is going to be in the future. And I've always positioned my company well to be there first. If you think about inkjet printing, the innovation isn't really driven by the printer manufacturers. It's driven by the printhead manufacturers and the ink companies. So the better printheads they build, and the ink companies can make an ink that go with it. If you can put it in a robust, stable package and service the customer well, you'll have success.
Right. Fantastic. One last question for you on this one. At some point, how would you couch your advice from your experience for somebody who's starting a company? And I'm going to preface it just a little bit. For a lot of the companies that we see from entrepreneurs, because there's so much support for entrepreneurial things, especially in the United States, everywhere, but especially in the United States, what advice would you give somebody who's building their first team? You've talked about a lot of qualities. I'm just curious. So I'm coming to you. I want to know, how do I build my team because I have this great idea and I need these kind of people?
To this day, I'm involved in the interview process. I don't select who we hire. I have other people who are more qualified to do that than me. But I have a group of questions that I ask in an interview. One of them is, if you could change one thing in your life, what would it be and why? Another one is, who was your mentor in life and what did they mean to you? These are questions that they're really not prepared to answer. And it's amazing what some people say. So, which will either rule them in or rule them out. But just having a one-on-one with everyone who's going to represent you in your company is the most important thing you can do.
Well, I'm going to turn that on you, and I'm going to say, who is the mentor in your life?
The mentor in my life was my Uncle Mike Case. I wasn't the best child, maybe, but he always saw something in me, and he always challenged me. And he was an entrepreneur. He owned many different companies. And if he could have faith in me and he helped show me the way, it gave me the confidence to take risks and succeed.
Okay, well, I think that's a great thing to end on. Dave, thank you so much.
Hey, no
that
problem.
Was great. Absolutely.
So good.